You're listening to the Ladies of Cowboy Action podcast with your hosts, Ruby Jewel and Winona Earp. Now, ladies, grab your boots and your cowboy hat and let's posse up. Okay, we are here with Clancy, and we're going to talk to her a little bit about her cowboy action shooting career. So tell us, Clancy, how long have you been shooting?
I started shooting in 2003 back in Australia. So I'm coming up to 19 years of shooting.
Oh, 19 years, nice. And you started in Australia, but you're mainly in the U.S. now, is that correct?
So I've been living in the US for the last 2 years. I'm posted here for work. So predominantly I've shot mostly back home in Australia, but we, as over the years, that want to come over here and do good. We've come over and shot End of Trail and EOT a number of times. So probably 3, 4, 5 times I've been here prior to living here now. So yeah, the 2 years here, and we've got another year to go for work before we head back home.
Okay. So how do you like the States?
Love it. I don't like LA where we live. Sorry to those Californians, but LA is not the place that we like to be. But there's so many other great places here in the US, and we just love the opportunities that we get with cowboy shooting. We get out on the road. We've travelled to Oklahoma. We've done lots of road trips. We've seen some great parts of the country, and also had some really great opportunities to shoot at some wonderful matches throughout the US as well.
Clancy, can you talk about the titles that you currently hold right now?
My titles that I hold, my most recent title was Lady Wrangler World Champion last year, 2021. I also hold the California overall regional ladies champion, and this California state champion overall lady, I think. And then obviously I've won a numerous number of national, overall and regional titles in Australia as well. So I've been kind of lucky, I think, in lots of ways, but a lot of hard work has also gone into getting to that point. It's not just through lack of shooters or that. There's really good competition in Australia. As some of you know, Cat House Kelly is a prime example of that, and we have some excellent younger ladies coming up as well. So and then the competition here as well is just amazing, and I think that is also one of the reasons why I've got to the point where I am, because the bar is just set so high here, and you just want to keep aiming for the top.
Right.
Well, you arrived here an excellent top shooter, but I've seen you personally gain leaps and bounds. What is your practice been since you've been here?
So my practice here is different to how it was at home. At home, I would go to the range of a weekend and put in maybe an hour or two with a friend, and we would do drills and things like that. Obviously here, with the distance to get to ranges, it's been a different sort of way of approaching training here. So mostly we just get out to club matches, but I treat a club match as a training match. So I just push it, try and focus on your fundamentals, your transitions, and you just push it to the point where just trying to see how fast you can go. And of course we have some amazing men shooters here, which, set that bar even higher. And I think it's just that competitive nature in me that I want to try and compete at that level, and I push myself to try and find someone that I want to try and beat consistently, and I just aim for that and I set my goals on that. But there's dry firing at home. There's a mental approach to it as well. When you go
Talk a little bit about the mental approach, because I know for me, you talked about treating your monthly shoot matches or the weekend matches as your practice match and just pushing yourself. Sometimes I have trouble with that, because if I feel like if I don't do as well because I'm pushing myself, it mentally kind of messes me up. So talk a little bit about how you do with that.
I mean, each stage we take as it is. So, you have a good stage, a bad stage. It's about finding that mental approach where you can cut off a bad stage and then move on and just completely forget about it. You can't dwell on anything that's happened. You can't go back and change it. It's being able to clear your mindset and go, okay, like we're not playing for big money,
Right.
big prizes. It's really just your own self-achievement. What you want to get out of it is that. So there's no use to beat yourself up on it if you've had a bad stage. Just forget about it and go, okay, what did I learn from that mistake? How do I move forward and not bring that mistake into me? And by doing that at club matches, when you get to a big match, you'll find that you have that ability to cut off and not let a bad stage or something that's happened affect you as you move on. So it's really just a growing mechanism where instead of going, I've done this, how do I? It's more about thinking of the positive side of it. Like, okay, what did I learn from that mistake, and how do I use that error to do something better, and how can I make that sort of issue not happen again,
Right.
and move forward with it.
Do you have any particular thing that you do on a stage when you're getting ready to shoot a stage mentally to prepare?
I try not to overthink the stage. I think sometimes you can sit there and go over and over and over the scenario, and I think to some point you become so you've overthought it, and it's not as complicated as you think it is.
Right.
And when I get up to the loading table, I've loaded everything. I actually try and clear my mind, and all I've got in there. I usually close my eyes, and all I'm doing is I'm listening to the couple of shooters before me, and I'm just picturing the targets in my mind. I'm not actually watching them shoot. I'll think about things like that. And then when I get to the line, I take a big breath. And then that buzzer goes. And as we all know, once that buzzer goes, you hope that everything goes the way it should go. But that's pretty much what my mental approach is. Yeah, I just try to clear off any other thing that's going on around me.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, a big part of getting into cowboy action shooting is choosing our name. So tell me a little bit about how you chose your name.
Okay, so my name used to be Miss Clancy, and I dropped the Miss after a number of years. There used to be a male shooter called Clancy, and I always wanted an Australian alias. And a lot of people, believe Clancy is a male name, and true it is. But there's a very famous poem in Australia called the Man from Snowy River and the Man from Snowy River and Clancy of the Overflow. It's many people have probably heard of the movie, and Clancy's actually in that movie. But there's the poem called Clancy of the Overflow has a last paragraph, and basically it's the poet writing about him working in a dingy and dark office, wishing he was Clancy out on the range. And it was this perfect. I'm like, that's me sitting in my office at work, wishing I was on the range being Clancy. So that's where my alias comes from.
Okay. And then how did you get into cowboy action shooting?
A really good friend of mine many, many years ago told me about EOT, and this is when it was back at Rahagi's. And I had an opportunity to come to the US, and I thought, I'm in California, I'll go out there and have a look at it. And I literally got there, walked around, and I just knew in my heart that this was me. Sometimes you just have something click. The costuming, the shooting, everything like that, and at the time, I make all my own stuff as well. So it was like, just this passion for sewing came back. Shooting, I'd been around guns before with previous work, and I'm like, this is me, and I'm like, I have to find this. And I went home and I found actually a local club where I lived, and met up with some people from the club. And I remember going out there, and after about the first or second week, I said to the people running it, I'm going to be the best shooter, best female shooter in Australia one of these days. And he's kind of looked at me, rolling his eyes, going, yeah. And but I think I set the bar for myself from that very first day. That's the first introduction to cowboy shooting. That's nice. Where the passion comes from.
You say do you still make all of your clothes? Okay, so because we, as women, we are interested in not only the shooting part. Some of us are just about shooting, but some, are all about costumes. So tell us a little bit about your costuming, how you got into, you said you liked sewing before. So did you find patterns? How did you, start doing the costumes?
So the sewing side of it, my mum taught me to sew when I was about, from a wee little girl type thing, did sewing through school. And it was always a passion. I actually wanted to do costuming when I finished school, but somehow I ended up in the career that I do now. But I've always had that passion, always that crafty side of me. Always have to keep my hands occupied doing something. Can't just sit there and do nothing of a night time. So I'm either beading, sewing, or doing something like that. And the costuming side of it, I really got into it big time in the beginning. You know, I made the ball gowns. I've won Best Dressed here at EOT, Winter Range, things like that. So, you know, we used to have a great website that the Carolina Bells used to run. This is many, many years ago. And it was a group of cowgirl action shooters, kind of like Locust, but it was more on the sewing side. And we'd get together on the internet and we would discuss our costumes and help each other with what we were doing. And, you know, it was just such a great community in that. And I think, you know, cowboy shooting, you know, a good part of it is about the costuming and having that passion. It's not just the shooting side of it. It's that fun side of dressing up and forgetting who you are, really.
Right. Just come up with a new alias and you just become that person.
Exactly.
Are you currently helping other ladies with their costuming?
I'm always willing to help other ladies with their costuming. I probably don't make the big dresses and that anymore. They're just so time consuming and they take up so much luggage space and they're way too hot to wear. But I do make corsets for some of the ladies, you know, and, you know, I'm always happy to help out where people need advice on. And I think one of the other things too, as a new shooter, giving some of the ladies advice on what to wear on the range, not necessarily telling them that what they're wearing is not right, but, you know, we've all learned the hard way if something's not appropriate in the sense that you get caught, you know, things like that, just to be wary of that, you know, give some people advice, you know, length of their skirts and things like that. So
Yeah.
always happy to help.
I feel like it seems like there's two different costuming. There's the event and the award ceremonies costuming, and then there's your shooting costuming where you just want to be comfortable and not have anything you're going to trip over and make sure your shoes are where you can run in them and those kinds of things.
And I think most of us find what we're most comfortable with, and we tend to just, you know, wear the same thing over and over because we find what works, and we all do that. So.
Or we wore what didn't work and we
well many years
caught.
ago you used to have to sit on props, you know, you used to sit on a horse of some sort or straddle things. So again, your costuming back then, a lot of the ladies wore the split skirts where they don't sort of have that now, so it makes a bit of difference.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Ruby, do you have anything else that you...
So I've noticed you also mentoring a lot of ladies out there, and I know you've mentored me and given me great insight. What would you say to a new gal coming on the range that isn't familiar with firearms, isn't quite comfortable?
I think ultimately, you know, ask yourself, what are you coming for? Like, are you coming for the fun, the competition, both? Are you just here to support your spouse? But, I mean, ultimately, we all have different things we want to get out of shooting. You know, some, like I said, here for the shooting, the competitiveness. Some are just here for the fun, the friends, supporting spouses. But, you know, I think regardless of what you come for, there's a mentor approach that you can have for everyone. You know, we have the competitive mentor, we have the, you know, we talk to those that support, that don't shoot, you know, we talk to them and you know, mentor them in what they need to do, those that help us score. But the mentoring approach, I think, is just a way of passing on something that's, you know, taking me 17, 18 years to learn, and ideally passing that information on so that our up-and-coming shooters and people that want to do better, that they can learn something without having to go through the long process that it kind of took some of us. You know, we learn old ways, there's lots of new ways, and if we can pass on those things to avoid them having to go through what we went through, it's all part of that mentoring process.
I agree. And for someone who's maybe interested in getting into cowboy shooting but doesn't know where to start, what advice would you give them?
I think it's probably harder for female to start this. I actually started this shooting as a single female myself. I had no male spouse at the time, and I was a single mum and got into it, and I'm like, I'm just going to do it. But I think women are probably more intimidated by women, and I think it's probably harder. And when they see a lot of good women shooters, which we have here, it's probably scary for them to take that step. And that's where I think that encouragement from us shooters to those other women is to get up and have a go. You know, at one point we have all been in that exact situation. How do I take the first step? I'm so nervous. I'm intimidated. There's so many good shooters. You know what? We've all been there. We've all had to start at some point. Just jump in, have a go. It's fun. That's all it is. It's not, like I said, we're not playing for money. We're not playing for big prizes. It's about the fun that you get out of it.
Right.
And you set your own goals to what you want to achieve.
That's a good advice too.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, Clancy, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate talking to you.
I love it. I love you guys.
Thank you.